Welcome from the studios of KPBS TV in San Diego, California. We are reaching you live through a unique and complex international telecommunications network via satellite, microwave, and cable. The International Training Center at San Diego State University brings us all together in this video conference, which joins distinguished organizations located in Mexico, Cuba, the Dominican Republic, Costa Rica, Panama, Venezuela, Colombia, Peru, Ecuador, Brazil, Bolivia, Paraguay, Argentina, and the United States of America. Welcome to our program, the new Competitive Cooperative Economy, Benchmarking and Competitive Intelligence. This is the 12th and final video conference in the series Competitive Success with a Global Focus. My name is Richard Page, and I will be your moderator for today's program. I am a private attorney with the Page Firm, a professional corporation which specializes in the areas of business and international litigation, including alternative dispute resolution, located here in San Diego, California. Today's video conference is composed of 2 presentation modules and 2 question and answer sessions. We look forward to your live participation. The new age of globalization and supreme competition into which we are being immersed will increasingly require us to cooperate and benchmark with others, identifying and developing at all levels those skills necessary for growth and competitive success. In this new world environment, economic intelligence equals power. This important video conference will provide participants with the concepts and techniques essential for competitive intelligence, benchmarking, and customer satisfaction. Our well-known speaker will review the most important message of his best-selling book, The Manager's Guide to Benchmarking, adding his personal views on what it takes to achieve global competitive success with a global focus. It is a pleasure to introduce to you today's expert speaker, Mr. Jerome P. Finnigan. Mr. Finnigan is Human Resources Manager for Xerox Corporate Research and Technology in El Segundo, California. He joined Xerox in 1966 and has held a variety of human resource positions in Los Angeles, California, and Rochester, New York. Mr. Finnigan's assignments have largely been in human resource development and organization development. He was an early advocate of quality circles in the late 1970s and was quality officer for the Printing Systems Division during Xerox implementation of Total Quality. Mr. Finnigan is author of The Manager's Guide to Benchmarking and co-author with Dr. Warren Schmidt of 2 books on total quality management, The Race Without a Finish Line, America's Quest for Total Quality, and TQ Manager, a practical guide to managing in a total quality organization. Welcome once again, Mr. Finnigan. Let us begin with an introductory question. With the increasing information overload that many individuals and companies are experiencing, how does one filter the information to create valuable knowledge?
Great question, Richard. Discovering the answer to this question is a challenge for all of us. It's the challenge, I think, of the new millennium. It will not be easy. Not to sound trite, but I think the answer is knowing what you don't know, knowing what you need to know, and learning how to find out what you need to know. And I hope in the next couple hours we'll spend some time finding the answers to those questions.
Thank you for your comments. Let us begin with Module 1, in which Mr. Finnigan will discuss knowledge and its role in the global economy.
Thank you. It is a pleasure to again be part of a San Diego State University International Training Center video conference. I would like to talk to you first about knowledge and its role in our global economy. The reason for my beginning this presentation with a discussion on knowledge stems from the fact that while competitive intelligence is an essential reserve of knowledge for any operation, and benchmarking has become the key source of such information, both benchmarking and competitive intelligence are really subsets of a far more significant strategy in today's world, the management of knowledge. In the first module this morning, we'll try to understand the global economy better, what it is, and what it portends because of the growing significance of knowledge. In the second module, we will look at the importance of managing knowledge. That means understanding how knowledge is created, how to obtain knowledge about your competitors, and how to manage what you learn. We'll also examine benchmarking and competitive intelligence as key sources of knowledge. As is obvious to us, all over the past 3 decades, the world's economy has grown rapidly in unique and challenging ways. As it has grown larger, it has also become more interdependent. And as we all know, it has grown more competitive. Harvard professor Lester Thoreau describes this global economy as competitive-cooperative. This is true because as companies routinely cross national boundaries to compete for markets and customers, they often find the trip easier when it is taken in the company of people who have made it before. Therefore, in addition to reconfiguring themselves to remain competitive, organizations today have no hesitation to make new alliances and new relationships. The environment in which we live and work has become fast-paced and relentless in the pursuit of success and survival. And to survive, you have to possess speed, innovation, and knowledge. Perhaps the best place for us to begin is to consider 3 transformations that are impacting our organizations. The first transformation is the evolution of corporations. This evolution is caused by 3 factors. The first is that downsizing that has affected us will continue. Staying small is necessary to offset the new competitors that are starting up every day, organizations that have lower overheads and which are structured to remain small. The second factor is alliances. Worldwide alliances have become the best means for small to medium-sized organizations to compete in the global marketplace. And so that larger organizations are forced to adopt to similar arrangements in order to expand their reach with minimal investment. For example, for years, AT&T knew what it had to do to meet multinational customer demands for quality global services. With competition increasing, they started to probe deeper towards understanding their customers' needs. They realized that quality networks are only part of the value they could offer. AT&T learned that customers also wanted strong local support that was customized to their local business operations. This meant AT&T had to go beyond the standards the company had set for domestic and global services. To support their multinational customers in their global operations, AT&T had to supplement its global support structure with local knowledge and local expertise. So they developed alliances and other partnerships throughout the world to provide that local support. One of these is the World Partners Associations, which AT&T formed in 1993, along with KDD of Japan and Singapore Telecom. World Partners today is an alliance of 16 like-minded, customer-driven carriers committed to provide highly reliable, borderless voice and data communication services to multinational corporations, with an emphasis on expert local support. On a regional level, AT&T has also formed alliances that link its global reach with local expertise. It provides services in the UK through AT&T Communications, UK Limited. In continental Europe, it's through AT&T Unisource. In Canada, through Unitel, and Mexico through Alestra. Standards adopted by these ventures are the same as they are for AT&T's United States-based services. The third factor is that to meet global consumer demands requires service that is anywhere, anytime. For most companies, this means establishing new operational frameworks that can support diverse, distributed, and cross-functional work requirements created by specific consumer demands in different cultural, economic, and political environments. The second transformation is workforce fragmentation. This is a paradigm that is sweeping the world. The workforce is fragmenting because increasingly workers are identifying with their profession, their art or craft, their training and skill, more than with their employer. It is reminiscent of the medieval craft guilds. Even more significant is the growing sophistication of information workers, since for the first time in centuries, many workers own the means of their production, that is, knowledge and information, and they have broad access to the tools they need because of the Internet, and we'll talk more about that later. The effect is shorter rates of job tenure and a variety of new types of employment relationships between employers and employees. With ever more powerful computing and communicating tools, growing numbers of workers are choosing to create and sell their services instead of their own labor. Alone or in small firms, independent knowledge workers will constitute a vital web of resources upon which larger organizations will become increasingly dependent. The challenge for our organizations is to maintain the flexibility that comes from such a fragmented labor force while maintaining ready access to highly skilled, competitive workers. This very important topic will be covered in a future ITC video conference entitled Workforce 2020. The third transformation is how we identify and measure productivity. Under the old way of thinking, productivity was determined by the production of volume. This was done by making investments of labor and capital that would support work processes structured around individual tasks. The culmination of these tasks was the production of a widget. The success of the process was measured by the quantity of widgets produced in a specific period of time. It is a time-trusted, proven method with which we are all familiar. In fact, for the most part, the schools in which we were educated were built, structured, operated, and measured by this same process. That makes us the outputs of our school systems. We are measures of their productivity. I'm not so certain that my own alma maters are excited about that thought. But in the new global economy, there are changes happening in the process which require new thinking and new ways of doing things. First, due to customer demand and severe competition, the new objective is not producing volume, but the creation of value. A value the customer measures not in price alone. Consumers today measure value in terms of timeliness, quality, and innovation. Also, while labor and capital are still key investments, knowledge has not only become at least an equal partner, it is rapidly becoming the senior partner. And the work process for creating value in a timely, reliable, innovative way is no longer a string of individual tasks, but a cluster of individuals or teams, often clusters of teams, what many today call communities of work. And we'll talk more about these communities a little bit later. The salient word here is innovation. What does innovation mean? In this context, it means creating new business value with the emphasis on new. How do organizations create value today? By being open to others' ideas, especially those of their customers. By willing to make investments in new ideas, and by being able to learn from what you learn and to learn from what you don't learn. This model shows what I mean. Not all emerging markets are created by emerging technologies. Some are, but some are not. It is also true that not all emerging technologies automatically establish or lead to the discovery of an emerging new market. So the challenge is to constantly study and examine your marketplace, while at the same time continuously pursuing new technology and taking advantage of the overlaps. Because it is these mergers of technology and markets that represent the vital few critical opportunities. As you play in these new market opportunities, you have to be open to feedback from your customers and your employees. In fact, you have to seek out feedback if you want to learn more about your markets and more about the applications of your technologies. Ivan Negrin, who runs Xerox's Guatemalan operations, points out that his competitors basically offer the same features as does Xerox, and the only difference is service. He says, we need to identify our customers' requirements and match them with our systems, because it all comes down to value invested versus value received. Negrin says his job is to show the client the value he receives by acquiring one of our systems. It is this kind of aggressive learning process that leads to true innovation, the creation of new business value. So one way to view the new global economy is to see the world's organizations as crusaders on a quest for new business opportunity by riding upon an engine of value creation. And the fuel for this engine is a continuous source of knowledge. Since all great transformations have indicators, you might well ask what kind of trends you might look for to know if you or your organization is being directly touched by this knowledge-driven global economy. Ask yourself if you are or are expecting to be affected by one or more of the following trends. First, industry consolidations. How many mergers have there been in your industry? Next, new competitors. Are there new competitors in your industry? Are they startups or new competitors that have found, non-competitors that have found a new technology? How about new partners? Has your organization formed any new partnerships? Have any of your competitors formed new partnerships? Fourth, internet influences. Does the internet have a role in your industry in marketing, sales, or service? Fifth, dependence on knowledge creation. How important is intellectual property to your organization? Is there an added emphasis on patents and patent protection? And lastly, network services. How much of your daily operations are conducted on a local area network or internal system? How dependent are your operations becoming on such systems? In addition to knowledge and growing borderless markets, the new global economy is also about the interdependence of workers, consumers, and society as a whole. The imperatives behind worldwide trade, driven by more nations switching to market economies, are tightening the bonds between nations and peoples. Currency transactions now ripple through entire regions. Sour economy in one region can cause heartache throughout the globe. Witness the recent currency problems in the Orient, Russia, and Brazil, and their effect on world investment markets. Another influence is the connection between workers, consumers, and society as a whole in establishing a growing consumer base that chooses the products and services it uses from organizations they recognize as globally conscious. The mantra for this new way of thinking comes from John Nesbitt. Think locally, be attentive to your own survival and needs, focus on the protection of your own environment, society, and people, but when you act, do so in a global context. Let's now put knowledge in the context of this global economy. First, knowledge is important to survival, and the pursuit of knowledge must be a never-ending quest. To stress this, let me share with you one of my favorite stories. I think it makes the point. One morning, a guy goes down to get his newspaper. He sees a snail near his newspaper. The guy hates snails. So he picks up the snail and throws it as far as he can into a nearby wood. A year passes. One day there's a little knock on the door. The guy opens the door, looks down, sees the snail. Snail looks up at him and says, "So what the hell was that all about?" To the snail, things happened fast. Knowing what had happened and why is vital to his future survival. For the guy, knowing why he did what he did and being able to explain it to the snail is important for their keeping a relationship that might be important later. He wouldn't want to find his newspaper clustered with snails every morning. Okay, knowledge is important, but what is knowledge? To answer this, we have to look at the management of knowledge for a moment. Knowledge management is the third major business trend of recent years, following the quality movement and re-engineering. Although it is still in its infancy, knowledge management shows promise of accomplishing even more than the other two, because chances are that it will be more embraced more enthusiastically by employees, especially those called knowledge workers, who represent 35% of today's workforce. Knowledge workers, as you will remember from the last ITC video conference, is the person in the organization who knows more about his or her job than anybody else in the organization. In a speech he gave in Rome several months ago, Xerox's chairman and chief executive officer, Paul Allaire, called knowledge management the, quote, business imperative of the 21st century, end quote. He went on to say that it is not about managing hired hands, but it is about setting context and supporting hired minds. People who are at the forefront of knowledge management are reluctant to cite a hard and fast definition, but they all agree that because knowledge resides in people's heads, knowledge management is about people and creating a work environment that makes them more effective. Actually, a little later, I will propose to you a definition for knowledge management. The global economy has sometimes been called the information economy. So consider this. In the information economy, we started with data and then switched to information management because information management has a higher value. Now we are moving to knowledge management because it is on the next higher level. At this point, let's pause and make certain we are clear on the terms and the intent of the pursuit of knowledge. There are three key terms: data, information, and knowledge. Data is the formation of unorganized numbers, words, sounds, and images. Information is data arranged or processed into meaningful patterns. Knowledge is information put into productive use so that some kind of action can be taken. Managing knowledge means that you are able to do 4 things with knowledge. You can generate it, you can access it, you can facilitate it, you can utilize it, and you can transfer it. There are 3 additional terms that are important to understanding the management of knowledge: learning, innovation, and growth. In this context, learning means the process of refreshing and updating knowledge. Innovation means the creation of something of value enabled through a change in knowledge. In other words, new knowledge. Growth means business expansion powered by the creation of something of value, innovation, new knowledge. There is a requisite foundation that is necessary, and that is the development of a knowledge culture within any organization. And to develop such a knowledge culture requires that the organization do several things. 1, manage personal organization performance with information. Sometimes this is called managing by fact. 2, facilitating an understanding of the business through information. 3, building trust through the sharing of information within the organization. 4, viewing mistakes as learning opportunities. 5, benchmarking your competition. And finally, knowing your customers' requirements and their expectations. One of the problems for knowledge workers today is that they are drowning in a sea of information while grasping for real knowledge. For example, I'm sure all of us have had the experience of going into a search engine to look for information about a specific subject on the web and winding up with hundreds of hits. Too much information is often as bad as too little. Knowledge management is about refining the filtering, the synthesizing, the summarizing of information to fit the exact needs of the recipient. Therefore, a good search engine will become one of the tools of knowledge management. They will give workers the basic information they need and then let them use their background and experience to refine the information to get a job done. Knowledge management means much more than just providing the tools for knowledge workers. It also means developing new marketplace opportunities for existing and new organizations. To give you an example from my own organization, recently Xerox announced the establishment of Xerox Knowledge Sharing Centers. The purpose of these centers is to demonstrate the significance of documents in this digital and connected age, to show that digital documents characterize the 21st century as key instruments of knowledge sharing. The objective is to share knowledge and to sell more printers. Many organizations have initiated major projects to assure that knowledge is understood and shared. At British Petroleum, they conduct regular seminars on knowledge for senior executives, and they have launched 3 global knowledge management projects, each headed by a senior executive. At AT&T, they have established a network of knowledge experts, and they have initiated knowledge sharing projects across their business. And at Hewlett-Packard, they've established a knowledge infrastructure to manage 7 knowledge projects. Lotus Institute sees opportunities from knowledge management on 2 fronts, internal and external. Internally, Lotus and its parent IBM want the process efficiency and customer service that state-of-the-art systems can provide. Externally, Lotus builds such systems for customers. Lotus uses insights gained internally as one input into understanding the external market. Their approach is to start with a pilot study, build and document a successful system, and then use this success to branch out into the company. In Lotus's case, the start was made with customer support. This prototype installation was a big success. Customer relationships improved, new analysts were trained in 3 days, down from 1 month, and solutions to customer problems were found much more quickly. This success became a springboard for global rollouts throughout Lotus and IBM, with executive sponsorship lined up in each organization. Another learning strategy is the ability to leverage knowledge through collaboration. An example is the partnership between Hewlett-Packard and Canon, which commands more than 70% of the $20 billion world market for laser printers. Canon invented and makes the engines which pour ink onto the page. Hewlett-Packard handles software, microcontrollers, customer research, and marketing. The alliance has endured even though Canon and HP compete aggressively in lower-priced inkjet printers. What is often called organizational learning today is the intentional action of an organization to continuously transform itself through both adaptive and innovative learning. The reality is that all organizations learn, and they learn at different levels of proficiency and at different paces. To become a learning organization, an organization must find ways to make learning more intentional and more systemic. Helping your workers to learn from their mistakes is one key to this new learning. By learning more about their work processes, employees and managers are increasingly able to learn from their mistakes. Most breakthroughs in work activity are the result of gaining insights from such personal experiences. Microsoft President John Devine's words are echoed around the company. If you fire the person who failed, you're throwing away the value and learning of the experience. When the spreadsheet product manager came to Bill Gates in 1989 and he was told that there was a major bug in the product and it would have to be recalled from the stores, Gates said, well, today we lost $250,000. Tomorrow we'll have to do better. This kind of thinking is especially true today because the new global economy places knowledge at the heart of growth and development. Facilitating and accelerating the unleashing of the know-how and creativity of people is therefore the key challenge for all organizations. Being able to assimilate and comprehend knowledge more easily is the great promise of the digital era. But to take advantage of this, organizations must accept that their strength rests in the fact that their people possess knowledge. By providing a timely context for releasing knowledge, sharing ideas, and building knowledge, an organization can drive innovation in new knowledge. This is why companies today are making more effort in developing and leveraging their human resource assets. While different organizations may call these efforts different things, increasingly these activities are being placed under the rubric of intellectual capital. In this new era of intellectual property, blue-collar and white-collar workers are fast being replaced by gold-collar workers, that is, persons who possess strategic knowledge. Companies have long been valued according to their financial assets and sales, their real estate holdings and other tangible assets. But financial measures are clearly becoming inadequate when it comes to measuring the value of organizations today, especially those with few tangible assets. What price does one assign to creativity, to service standards, to alliances or unique computer systems. Traditional accounting methods simply don't reflect the worth of such vital yet intangible keys to sustain growth. Intellectual capital is at least as important as financial capital in providing an accurate picture of an enterprise's true worth and its ability to produce sustainable earnings. But because intellectual capital has not traditionally been measured or reported, the values it represents is often hidden. The American Society for Quality Control has created the American Customer Satisfaction Index, which is an example of a method for providing the economic indicator of the value of customer capital. Human capital represents the knowledge, skill, and capability of individual employees to provide solutions to customers. Structural capital consists of everything that remains when the employees go home: databases, customer files, software manuals, trademarks, organizational structures, and so on. You might be wondering if this is overdoing it. You might ask if is it that important? Lou Platt, chairman and president and CEO of Hewlett-Packard, says, "Successful companies of the 21st century will be those who do the best jobs of capturing, storing, and leveraging what their employees know." About now, I think it is time to pause, but first let me call your attention to the worldwide interest in knowledge management that was underscored by the announcement last month at the Knowledge Management Conference in London of the 1998 Most Admired Knowledge Enterprises, MAKESM. Sponsored by Telios, an independent knowledge management research organization, awards were given out to the top 5 companies, recognized for their world-class knowledge creation and sharing efforts. The 20 top-ranking organizations are Lucent Technologies, Intel, Monsanto, Ernst & Young, Xerox, Arthur Andersen, Hewlett-Packard, IBM, 3M, Nokia of Finland, Buckman Labs, Scandia, GE, Anderson Consulting, Sun Microsystems, Pfizer, Siemens of Germany, Chevron, and British Petroleum. If you are interested in learning more about what these organizations do, you can access the MAKESM study on the internet at www.knowledgebusiness.com. In the next segment, we will look at strategies and actions you can use to become more responsive to your customers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Finnigan. Let us begin the first question and answer session. We will try to answer as many questions as possible. Therefore, we ask that only one question be asked per phone call, and that these questions be as brief as possible. You may call the studio directly at the phone